We're on top of some breaking news for you right now. We've been live in Lakewood all morning, where officers are investigating the shooting death of one of their own. This is the area near Sloan's Lake. The investigation is going on at 20th and Depew, where some streets remain closed at this hour. Air Tracker 7 was over the scene after the officer was shot around 3:30 this morning outside a house near 19th and Eaton. Police initially were in this area on reports of a prowler. Right now, police from several agencies are looking into several scenarios, including the possibility that this officer was shot by another officer. The 35-year-old officer was assigned to a special enforcement team and was a 7-year veteran of the Lakewood Police Department. And this story continues to develop by the minute. We'll be breaking down for you where the investigation stands in just a moment. Another breaking story is happening in Aurora. Jewel Elementary School and Gateway High School are on lockdown. The district is telling us this is because of police activity in the area. We have requested information for you from police, and we're waiting to hear back from them. And more breaking news right now. We also are waiting for the president to talk. He'll be addressing the so-called fiscal cliff, which would mean a tax increase. And a 24/7 weather alert to tell you about. We are keeping a close eye on a storm that's coming in, even though it's sunny and clear right now in the Denver metro area, or mostly clear at least. Get ready for a 40-degree drop in temperatures in the next 48 hours. Quite a change. So while we wait for the president, let's bring in Maureen briefly. Maureen, some parts of Colorado could be hit with snow. And big snow at that, Bertha. Maybe 10 to 20 inches for parts of the San Juans and the Sangre de Cristo and Saguache ranges. Not so much here in the metro area. We won't be looking at totals like that, but skiers and snowboarders are going to be thrilled with this. You can see it looks like snow there in Crested Butte. They've had a few light flurries there this morning, but the bulk of the activity is still back to the west. We have numerous weather alerts to pass on to you. We have the winter weather advisories for the areas in purple there, and then for pink, that's the winter storm warnings. Nothing for the metro area just yet, but we may see something move closer to us, or rather surrounding the metro area, because that's when we're going to be dealing with the increased precipitation maybe tomorrow. But today it's quiet, it's mild. The bulk of the precip back to the west. Again, here's the broad view of the satellite and radar. Can see some rain starting to show up for the western slope. Not cold enough yet for that to come down as snow in the Grand Junction area. Telluride has seen some rain-snow mix this morning, but again, the trough is still back to the west. It's going to push southwesterly winds across the state today, and that's a very moist flow, which is why we'll see that upslope favoring the southwestern part of the state. So Wolf Creek, Durango, Gunnison, those are going to be some places that see the heavier totals. Meanwhile, back here in the metro area, 60s today. So that's how it's looking with our metro forecast for today. We'll talk about the 7-day planner and show you the exact snow totals for the metro area as it all moves in tomorrow into Sunday. Bertha? Check with you soon, Maureen. But right now, returning to the breaking news in Lakewood, a veteran police officer was shot and killed early this morning. Among the scenarios being investigated, the possibility that he was killed by a fellow officer. Now, this happened outside a house near Sloan's Lake at 20th and Eaton. 7 News reporter Tyler Lopez was on the scene just minutes after the shooting this morning, and he joins us now live. Tyler, this crime scene is still very active at this point.
It is, Bertha, and police were tense from the moment we got here at 4:30 this morning. They were vague then around 6 o'clock, saying one person had been killed, not specifying if it was a suspect or someone else. We now know that's because the chief of police wanted to tell this officer's family what had happened in person. Police heard shots fired near 1940 Eaton Street before 2 a.m. They would see one man firing into the air and would arrest 3 men and find a gun or guns. After that point, a Lakewood officer was shot and killed. On police radios, it appeared to be a suspect.
We have shots fired. Shots fired at 3:40.
He's on the north side of the fence, Sarge. You got to move people. He's on the north side of the fence that runs between us and the apartment building. Hispanic male, shaved head, black semi-auto.
As the sun came up, police would realize they'd lost the first officer shot and killed in the line of duty since the Lakewood Police Department was founded in 1969. Now the grim possibility the Special Enforcement Team officer with nearly 7 years' experience may have been killed by one of his own.
That is a scenario right now. It is not confirmed completely. There were 2 or 3 pit bulls inside the house that we needed to deal with before we went back in there, so that was something that was happening on top of everything else going on at the time.
There are people absolutely heartbroken. We're going to be taking a long, long time. I'm sure that we'll be here for days.
Here's a live look now. These are police processing trucks from Arvada, Jefferson County. Denver is here too, assisting Lakewood as they wait for search warrants to go back into that home on Eaton Street. You can also see 20th Avenue is closed, likely to be closed for much of the day. Several of the north-south streets that cross it are also closed as police continue their investigation. Again, one scenario that this officer may have been killed by one of his own. We're told he was nearly 35 years old and was killed outside that home on Eaton Street. We're live just west of Sloan's Lake. Tyler Lopez, 7 News.
Okay, Tyler, thank you so much. We mentioned that we were waiting for the president's remarks. We're going to go now to ABC News coverage in progress.
Jake?
Hello, Diane. President Obama campaigned on the idea that those Bush tax cuts on wealthier Americans making more than $200,000 a year should be allowed to expire at the end of the year. So in addition to President Obama extending a hand to Republicans in Congress, and you'll hear that he invited Republican and Democratic leaders to come to the White House next week to negotiate on this, you'll hear an affirmation of this position because the president believes that the American people are with him. He campaigned on this issue, and of course, he won.
But
Diane, George.
the House Speaker, John Boehner, told you yesterday that those tax hikes are unacceptable.
But he also signaled that the fiscal cliff is there and they have to come to some kind of deal, and he knows how dire it would be to fall off that cliff. We should point out that the president is in the East Room of the White House.
That's right. He's got an audience of middle-class families. The White House has assembled to also have a group of those families behind him as well, and here they come now. The president will call for a balanced approach. That's what he said. He tried to negotiate with Congress last year, including both spending cuts and tax increases.
And again, we will be seeing the president for the first time since that victory speech he made.
Except for that one visit to his campaign staff.
Yes.
On Wednesday afternoon in Chicago, where we saw the president much more emotional than we've ever seen him before, tearing up as he told all those young campaign workers how proud he is of the work they've done, reminding him of his days as a community organizer in Chicago.
And what he expects from them in the future, saying he expected great things. Jake, tell us a little bit about who's in that room right now.
Well, it's a bunch of supporters, a collection of individuals, middle-class families that he considers himself to be fighting for, Diane.
Here now, from the East Room, the president.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Everybody, please have a seat. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Now that those of us on the campaign trail have had a chance to get a little sleep, it's time to get back to work, and there is plenty of work to do. As I said on Tuesday night, the American people voted for action, not politics as usual. You elected us to focus on your jobs, not ours. And in that spirit, I've invited leaders of both parties to the White House next week so we can start to build consensus around the challenges that we can only solve together. And I also intend to bring in business and labor and civic leaders from all across the country here to Washington to get their ideas and input as well. You know, at a time when our economy is still recovering from the Great Recession, our top priority has to be jobs and growth. That's the focus of the plan that I talked about during the campaign. It's a plan to reward small businesses and manufacturers that create jobs here, not overseas. It's a plan to give people the chance to get the education and training that businesses are looking for right now. It's a plan to make sure this country is a global leader in research and technology and clean energy, which will attract new companies and high-wage jobs to America. It's a plan to put folks back to work, including our veterans, rebuilding our roads and our bridges and other infrastructure. And it's a plan to reduce our deficit in a balanced and responsible way. Now, our work is made that much more urgent because at the end of this year, we face a series of deadlines that require us to make major decisions about how to pay our deficit down. Decisions that will have a huge impact on the economy and the middle class, both now and in the future. Last year, I worked with Democrats and Republicans to cut $1 trillion worth of spending that we just couldn't afford. I intend to work with both parties to do more, and that includes making reforms that will bring down the cost of health care so we can strengthen programs like Medicaid and Medicare for the long haul. But, as I've said before, we can't just cut our way to prosperity. If we're serious about reducing the deficit, we have to combine spending cuts with revenue. And that means asking the wealthiest Americans to pay a little more in taxes. That's how we did it. That's how we did it in the 1990s when Bill Clinton was president. That's how we can reduce the deficit while still making the investments we need to build a strong middle class and a strong economy. That's the only way we can still afford to train our workers or help our kids pay for college or make sure that good jobs in clean energy or high-tech manufacturing don't end up in countries like China. Now, already I've put forward a detailed plan that allows us to make these investments while reducing our deficit by $4 trillion over the next decade. I want to be clear, I'm not wedded to every detail of my plan. I'm open to compromise. I'm open to new ideas. I'm committed to solving our fiscal challenges. But I refuse to accept any approach that isn't balanced. I'm not going to ask students and seniors and middle-class families to pay down the entire deficit while people like me making over $250,000 aren't asked to pay a dime more in taxes. I'm not going to do that. And I just want to point out, this was a central question during the election. It was debated over and over again. And on Tuesday night, we found out that the majority of Americans agree with my approach. And that includes Democrats, independents, and a lot of Republicans across the country, as well as independent economists and budget experts. That's how you reduce the deficit, with a balanced approach. So our job now is to get a majority in Congress to reflect the will of the American people. And I believe we can get that majority. I was encouraged to hear Speaker Boehner agree that tax revenue has to be part of this equation. So I look forward to hearing his ideas when I see him next week. And let me make one final point that every American needs to hear. Right now, if Congress fails to come to an agreement on an overall deficit reduction package by the end of the year, everybody's taxes will automatically go up on January 1st. Everybody's, including the 98% of Americans who make less than $250,000 a year. And that makes no sense. It would be bad for the economy and would hit families that are already struggling to make ends meet. Now, fortunately, we shouldn't need long negotiations or drama to solve that part of the problem. While there may be disagreement in Congress over whether or not to raise taxes on folks making over $250,000 a year, nobody, not Republicans, not Democrats, want taxes to go up for folks making under $250,000 a year. So let's not wait. Even as we're negotiating a broader deficit reduction package, let's extend the middle class tax cuts right now. Let's do that right now. That one step would give millions of families, 98% of Americans, and 97% of small businesses the certainty that they need going into the new year. It would immediately take a huge chunk of the economic uncertainty off the table. And that'll lead to new jobs and faster growth. Business will know that consumers, they're not going to see a big tax increase. They'll know that Most small businesses won't see a tax increase. And so a lot of the uncertainty that you're reading about, that will be removed. In fact, the Senate has already passed a bill doing exactly this. So all we need is action from the House. And I've got the pen, ready to sign the bill right away. I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to do it. You know, the American people understand that we're going to have differences and disagreements in the months to come. They get that. But on Tuesday, they said loud and clear that they won't tolerate dysfunction. They won't tolerate politicians who view compromise as a dirty word. Not when so many Americans are still out of work. Not when so many families and small business owners are still struggling to pay the bills. What the American people are looking for is cooperation. They're looking for consensus. They're looking for common sense. Most of all, they want action. I intend to deliver for them in my second term, and I expect to find willing partners in both parties to make that happen. So let's get to work. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
There you have the president in the East Room, the vice president by his side saying, let's get to work, inviting members of Congress to a White House meeting next week, saying he's open to compromise, open to consensus, but drawing a line on taxes.
No question about it. He said he would not accept any plan that did not include a tax increase on the wealthy. Of course, Diane, the House Speaker told you he would not accept those tax increases on the wealthy. Fascinating to see the president ignore that comment from the House Speaker, instead seize on the comment from the House Speaker where he said he was open to new tax revenues but not tax rate increases.
And talking about the fact that he's got the pen ready to sign a bill, the confidence that he had in that room. Let's bring in White House correspondent Jake Tapper once again. Jake?
Well, Diane, you heard the president challenge Congress. He's ready to sign the tax cut extension for those who make under $200,000 a year, ready to sign it right now. And he made it very clear he campaigned on this issue and he won. He expects Congress to follow the will of the people. We'll see how that goes in the coming weeks.
The president
Diane?
clearly thinks he has a strong position right now. Thank you, Jake. We're going to return now to our regular programming. Thanks for joining us. Diane will be back tonight.
I will be back tonight on World News. I'll see you then. Have a great afternoon.
That was ABC coverage of the president's remarks in the East Room of the White House that we were waiting for, and now we have heard him. Another big story this morning, the changing weather here in Colorado. Next, the areas that could see a foot of snow. Stay with us.